You've got to have persistence in the industry. If you don't, you're not going to make it. Or you've got to have staying power to live without income for sometimes several years. We're well over 1 million square feet at this point in time under management, and most of that is our own portfolio.
What do you think somebody looking to get into commercial real estate could make?
It can be anywhere from a couple $100,000 a year to well over $1 million a year.
Well, how's everything going, man?
Oh man, life is good. God is good. We're blessed. Blessed with good opportunities, blessed with a good market to do business in. Granted, it's very tumultuous right now, if you will. But there's good things to be had in every market. You just got to know how to navigate those waters, right?
Yeah.
With interest rates rising, buying assets now, if you can make them pencil with high interest rates, they're going to pencil whenever rates come back down, and you can refinance in the assets in even better shape. So things are good.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one thing I was going to ask you. Like, what are you seeing right now? I mean, we're located in the Triangle market, so Raleigh, Durham, but you mostly focus on kind of around Raleigh, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say central to eastern North Carolina is fair to say. On the main transit corridors, 40, we have some assets on 40, 85, that whole corridor where the majority of the industrial, the older industrial stock of the state is where we like to look for opportunities.
Nice.
Yeah, Charlotte, the Triad, which consists of Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Burlington, High Point, and then the Triangle, which is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, and then the growing municipalities around that.
Okay, cool. Well, I want to back up for a second. Like,
Yeah.
I've known you for almost a year now since I joined CityPlat, but I kind of want to know, how did you get started in real estate, and what's a little bit of your background?
Man, I'm blessed to have grown up in it, for lack of a better explanation. My grandpa was in real estate. He was an entrepreneur. He was a state rep for a couple years in Pennsylvania, and in the side he would buy houses. He would do some small mobile home park development. So he really got the bug going in the family, if you will. And I learned a lot from him in my teens, growing up. Essentially, I learned what financing was. I learned how to, buy a house with little to no money down, and just I learned what real estate could do. And then later in life, my dad was a home builder turned student housing developer, essentially. And in high school, I learned how to use architecture software in high school, right? In the VOTech wing, essentially. And I learned how to design buildings. And so my later high school years into college, I would design buildings for him, and sort of learned what it takes to build a building, what goes into designing a building, and so on and so forth.
What kind of building? I mean, you're talking about home builders, but what kind of buildings?
Yeah, I was designing basically townhouse complexes for student living, essentially, around the university in my hometown. And, there's just a lot of busy work with that, with, learning how to draw an electrical plan, a plumbing plan, a site plan, all of that different, those different aspects of development. I learned at a very, very early age. And from there, I just continued pursuing real estate and kind of landed where I'm at now, which is an awesome situation. I've got great partners, great people that work with us. And it's fun, man.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Did you go to college? Didn't you get a degree in some kind
I did.
of
I went to 2 universities. Went to Kent State for 2 years up in Ohio. I studied architecture and construction there, and then transferred to Pitt in Pittsburgh for my remaining 2 years, and studied architecture again as a related study. I didn't get a minor in it, but then I got a major in urban planning. So you don't know what you don't know, essentially, in that realm of life. And if I could go back, I'd probably study different things, but I was pursuing urban planning because that's what I thought would get me closest to real estate development as possible. And looking back, I use some of my degree in what we do now, and it's definitely beneficial, but there are certain classes that I would recommend somebody new getting into, real estate, or somebody that wants to pursue real estate but is in the college years of their life. There are certain degrees or certain disciplines that I would definitely recommend pursuing. Finance, learn all you can about finance, learn all you can about entrepreneurship and business. I think there's a lot of universities now that offer real estate courses. just general classes and or development courses. I know around here locally, NC State is developing a program. UNC, their master's business school is one of the best in the country for that. So a lot of good real estate minds come out of UNC here locally in Chapel Hill. But yeah, I would definitely coach a young person to get into learn the financial mechanics of the market in general, but you can learn a lot about real estate from that side of things as well.
Would you, if you were to go back, would you still go to college, or would you just jump right into real estate? Because it's a big debate right now. People are talking about, oh, you shouldn't go to college, you shouldn't get student loans, and then some people are saying, they're all for it. Go to college, get your experience, and then come out of it.
I'm torn there. I know a lot of people. My business partner Nikita, one of them who didn't go to college or did for a little while and then got out of it and is obviously very successful. Right? I don't know. I think so. But he's living proof that you don't need a college education. I do feel if you use college the right way, it will benefit you. The whole university scene is changing right now. Obviously, with people are coming out of school with degrees that are useless, with a lot of debt. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. But I do believe there are degrees that are worth the paper they're printed on, right? Yeah. And you just got to find out what that is. So I would say yes. I think that there's a lot more to college than just the degree you walk out with. I think social skills,
networking,
and social skills are so important. Learning how to convey a point and communicate is also very important, and that I do believe is that skill is honed in college, mm-hmm. and I know it was for me at least. And I do believe there's value there, but a lot. I think that we're going to be going towards a lot more 2-year degrees than a lot of the fluff, for lack of a better word, that the universities provide now. So I'm still on the college train, but a modified version of that, to say the least.
Okay. Yeah. So when you went from, walk me through how you went from, being in college in Pennsylvania down to Raleigh. How did you make that transition?
So out of school, I worked for a civil engineering firm. I was there for probably 2 years.
In Pennsylvania?
In Pennsylvania. And during my tenure there, I did a plethora of different things within that industry. I worked in I worked on transportation projects. I worked for municipal utility projects, sewer, water line infrastructure, installation, that kind of thing. Surveying. I kind of touched a lot of different, professions within that job role. And I'm very appreciative for that opportunity. I'm very appreciative of that time, and I learned a lot. But I just always knew that pure real estate development and real estate, acquisition was what I wanted to pursue, and I knew I wasn't going to be doing it there. So, through a series of events, I just kind of made a decision that my hometown was just not the place for me to be at that point in time in my career. So I started looking for just the next thing, and through I call them God winks. Through different circumstances, Raleigh popped up on my LinkedIn feed at one point, and I'm like, that's an interesting place. Let me go look at that. I've never been here before that, So I came down and kind of fell in love with the area instantly, and made the decision to get my real estate license here in the state, and just move down and give it a go. And things have been great since then. I started working at a company here, a small firm. What was my first job here, and I'm very grateful to them for giving me the opportunity to come down, and we still remain very close to this day. And
what firm was that?
It was called Blue Sky.
Blue Sky, and that was when you went there. Were you focusing on kind of the development side, or were you focusing on brokerage? Development,
both development and a lot of land brokerage there. But I cut my teeth. I learned all the different aspects of commercial brokerage, just a little bit of each, and it was a very good, well-rounded education. But I pursued mostly development projects and entitlement projects while I was there.
Gotcha. And did you do any deals while you were there? Did you do any ones?
Several. We did several subdivisions, both from the entitlement side and the full-out development side.
So you went through and actually built out the subdivisions? To build out the homes, or did you sell them to builders?
We didn't build out the homes. We just did the infrastructure, some of the entitlement work. Yeah. And I don't need to do that again.
Yeah, no.
It's a lot, and anymore, the development world is getting very cumbersome, very risky. The time frames to do a project from each aspect is getting unrealistic now. The regulations in the municipal governments are making things very, very difficult, and I don't think they know it. They're the reason why there are major issues. They're one of the reasons why there are major issues in affordability today, because the time frames to get a project entitled, and what entitlement means is it means you're getting it, surveyed, civil, the engineering permits, and all the different studies that you need to get it done, to basically take it from a piece of raw land to permits in hand.
I was going to say full site plan approval.
Right. That entitlements encompasses a large amount of tasks within that, right? But that process, my grandpa would tell me stories about when he would start and did it back in the 70s and 80s, and it would take, sometimes weeks and months to get projects approved. Those projects are still in, use today, right? Now, you can't do anything less than 12 months, and that's 12
months is fast.
That is fast in today's world.
Yeah.
We're working on projects that have taken multiple years to do, and there's no reason for that. There's no reason other than bureaucratic messes in these municipalities that they should not be there. And there's always justifications on that side of things as to why, but there are solutions that just are overlooked.
Yeah. We just signed for a client, contract for a land deal in Chapel Hill, 3 years, 3-year timeline.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you some more about development. Before we jump into that, I'm curious. I've wanted to know, how did you go from being a blue sky to starting CityPlat? But almost more specifically, if anybody knows Pat and his partners, you guys couldn't be more different. So I'm curious how you guys kind of came together and formed CityPlat.
Well, we knew it was always been my dream to have my own company and to do my own thing and to be my own the leader of my own group, of something of my own creation, essentially. And that pursuit, if you will, was shared amongst my two partners, both of them. They Vincenzo and Nikita. They both had that same vision, that same drive. And there was just a day that we kind of looked at each other and said, "Let's do it." And we started CityPlat and kind of just started running with it from there. Started just the three of us, essentially. We had a few admin starting out in the beginning, and now we're at 25 people. I have to count them because we're.
Is that where it's at right now? 25.
I think I'd have to count them, but I think we're at 25. And it's been a blessing. It's been very challenging. It's something that we would definitely do it again, but it's a lot more challenging than it seems. Having a brokerage company isn't necessarily the most lucrative thing in the world, but what it's done for us is open up opportunities to acquire real estate and to service that real estate from the leasing standpoint and disposition standpoint, which that's the real value for us. The brokerage itself is not it's not a cash flow machine. It is there to create an environment of, energy and fun and keep the lights on. But the real value for what we do is in the acquisition world.
Okay, cool. And how does, I know because I'm in CityPlat, but how is the company kind of broken down?
Numerous different divisions. We've got the commercial brokerage division, which focuses mainly on investment sales, leasing. We have a land group, but mainly a lot of the most important aspect of it right now is the leasing of our own projects and everything else. And we have our capital division, which consists of individuals that are just constantly pursuing new acquisitions, whether it's from an underwriting standpoint, project management standpoint. Then we have property management, which manages all of our properties and third party properties as well. I think we're well over 1 million square feet at this point in time under management, and most of that is our own portfolio. So that group is very they're extremely important to our operation, and the reason we like it to have it in house is just so that we can have a pulse on everything that's going on. Because since we own the assets, we really need to know inside and out what's going on and have control of that and be able to really, add the value that we say we're going to add.
So what is your role? Because you have three partners, so you guys obviously don't share the same role.
Sure.
But what do you focus on?
Right now, I'm operating as the broker in charge. So I oversee compliance for a lot of for all the brokers in the shop. It's a lot of fun. You guys are a dream to work with. alongside. I oversee most of probably 90% of our development projects, all of our entitlement deals, and a lot of our ground up development deals that we've been working on for the past numerous years. Just a lot of work with that, and that's my background, right? That's where I kind of find I can add the most value, right? That's right, and that's where my passion is, in the deal creation, and really the beginning envisioning of a project, right? That's where I really geek out, and I love that aspect of real estate, and basically being able to see what can be before it's there is a true skill and passion of mine that I've had to hone in over the years, right? And I've had to work on that. And at times I think that everybody can see what I see, or what we see essentially, and that's not always the case. You really have to get good at seeing what's there before it's there.
I want to get. I think we want to get Vincenzo and Nikita probably on here eventually. But
yeah.
What do they do? What are their roles in the company?
I don't know. No. We do so much stuff, man. It's tough we wear so many hats. I'll let them speak to it more so. Each of us wear a very different hat, but we all wear numerous hats. We all are involved in the acquisition side. We're all involved in the development side. We're all involved in operations, property management. We're all involved in all of those aspects. So, as a small business owner, you have to be able to wear numerous hats. And for somebody like me that is driven to, creativity and definitely ADD, that type of atmosphere, some of the tasks throughout a business, in any small business are very difficult for me to do, just from a focus standpoint. But you have to be able to do that. You have to come above that or rise above that and figure out how to get it done until the point where you can start outsourcing those different tasks to either fractional employees, or you're able to hire within and, have employees that can take that off your plate for you.
What projects is CityPlat doing right now on the entitlement and development side?
We've got probably at least a dozen different development entitlement projects going on right now. We've got several multifamily deals. We've got one in Garner. We've got one in Clayton. We've got several in downtown Raleigh. We've got a couple in Durham. We've got one in Apex. So we're kind of sprinkled throughout the triangle with our entitlement projects. That's where we want to really stick to with that world, just because that's what we know the best, and
just
we know the players there.
Townhouses or apartments?
We've done both. We've done both, but mostly apartments right now. They're very popular, and they're just in high demand. But we like to stick close to home with that, because with entitlement comes, you've got to know who your buyers are. You've got to know who the developers are. You've got to know who the builders are. You've got to know the right engineers to use. You've got to know the right architects to use, the right surveyors, the right attorneys. That takes years of building up that vendor list, if you will. And it takes personal relationships. It's you just can't go into an area and just start, shotgunning different things to different individuals. I mean, it takes years to develop that. And that would be, my advice to somebody looking to get into that world is you've got to have great relationships with engineers, architects, surveyors, like you said, attorneys, and different types of attorneys too. You need to have a great land use attorney. You need to have a great closing attorney. You need to have a great an attorney that knows leasing and that can really hone in on that aspect of things. So you've got to have a plethora of different professionals that are on your team and on your side, and it takes years to develop that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So that's why we like to stick closer to the triangle where we have that sphere of influence, versus if we go to the triad, we're more willing to do different acquisitions out there, because it doesn't take as many vendors to do those types of acquisitions or those projects. But it still takes, once we get into those different areas, then we start building out that sphere of influence and that vendor list.
And I'm curious, what's the one you have going on in Durham you mentioned?
In Durham, we've got an adaptive reuse project that continues to grow. It seems like every year or every other year. The Mezcalito project, the board and brick project. Right now, it's in an opportunity zone, so it's got the benefits of an OZ. It's a great adaptive reuse project that it was a former automotive facility that is now a really cool Latin club, restaurant that is very successful, called Mezcalito. Lone Rider, who's a local brewer and distiller, it has a bar there as well. And then there's numerous venues that are coming after that are going to be, it's going to create a really cool entertainment complex. It already is, but it's going to keep adding to that. In the future, you don't know what could happen. It's a great piece of land. So in the future, we could build something bigger and put the users back in, or we could just keep it as it is and continue to grow that influence.
So that's kind of like maybe you could call it a trophy asset in your portfolio.
Sure.
That's another question I had. I know a good amount of what's in your portfolio, but for people listening, what is CityPlat focusing on, one, in acquisitions, and then two, what's in your current portfolio?
So I'll start with the first question. What are we focusing on? Right now, we are focusing mainly on value add assets, mainly in the industrial flex, and retail world. Mainly in those metros that I mentioned, the Triangle, the Triad, and then Charlotte is mainly where we're focusing, just because that's where we see the most value increase. That's where we're able to find the most product that needs value to be added to it, for lack of a better term. We're trying to shy away from the heavy lifts, if you will, and we like lighter lifts. And the difference between the two, a heavy lift could mean some major construction. It could mean some site planning. It could mean a lot of different things. But the lighter lift side, we'd like to stick to a lot of the, cosmetic issues. We like to come in where rents are lower than they should be, 50, 60% of market, where potentially there's some vacancies that through our brokerage we can fill, because our brokers, the average age of our brokerage is probably 32 years old. So we're on the younger side in comparison to the... Probably less.
Yeah.
So our brokers are on the younger side comparative to the marketplace, which the average broker in commercial real estate is probably in their 70s. I think it's in their 70s.
70s, wow.
So the competitive advantage that we have is we understand and know technology, and we know what that can do. And so we're using all forms of different marketing and technology to really add a different level of value to these assets that was otherwise not done in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's mainly what we're looking for right now, are assets that have cash flow in place that we can simply add to.
Gotcha. So basically, you're buying existing assets that have either been mismanaged, or kind of maybe they're distressed, or maybe it's just the owners.
There's a lot of different scenarios there. Mismanagement's one. Another one is just not caring for it as much as it should have been. Owners that have owned it for so many years that they just have not kept up with where the market has grown to.
Or adapted to,
right.
Obviously a big one, triple net leases. So what's in you guys' portfolio kind of right now? Is it mostly that retail and industrial?
The majority of the square footage is probably industrial and big box retail.
Yeah, big box.
Yeah, we have some big box. We have a Food Lion shopping center.
Oh, yeah,
We've got a few other shopping centers that have, some inline and big box retail. We like that a lot, especially if it's in the right location. Typically, those centers are on great corridors. They've got great vehicular traffic every day, and they're great long-term holds because they're always going to be great or very well traveled, right? And especially if you buy them right, they're just always going to be there. Whether you keep it as the retail or not, you always have potential to do something else, right? That's why we like those assets. On the industrial side, we are way underbuilt locally and nationally on the industrial real estate side. So anything we can buy that's existing, that we're buying well under replacement costs, it's a win.
No brainer.
It's a win, right? Yeah. And we have different formulas that we use of, what does make sense in terms of an acquisition. If we're out here buying projects for $40, $50, $60, $70, $100 a foot, whenever it costs you $170 to build tilt-up industrial right now, you're winning.
Yep.
So it's just natural, it's supply and demand.
And the rates have been increasing. Rental rates. I mean, when I first started in brokerage,
because of the demand,
right? I think it was about $8 a foot, triple net maybe, and now you're talking about pushing 12.
Well, some flex rates in Raleigh, even the time that I've been here, have gone from $8 to $12 a foot range to now $12 to $20 a foot range
20.
for flex industrial.
Flex rates,
It's nuts. It's crazy.
Yeah. So what? The next thing I was kind of going to discuss, if you were talking to somebody who was wanting to get into real estate, either brokerage or development.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you tell somebody who's, maybe younger,
Yeah.
maybe just graduated college, or maybe they're just coming out of high school?
You've got to have,
who's looking for, that next step in real estate.
The first thing I always say is you've got to have staying power. If you're persistent, and our CityPlat core values, and we've designed those core values to speak to this essentially. You've got to have persistence in the industry. If you don't, you're not going to make it. Mm-hmm. And when I say staying power, you've got to have staying power to live without income for sometimes several years.
Yep.
So whether that's being humble enough to live at home for a few years out of college, don't be proud. Who cares? If you are able to stay at home with mom and dad and grind during the day and stash away money or not spend money, do it.
Yeah.
Because the mid to later years of your career in commercial real estate can be more lucrative than any other industry, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So if you are able to stay in that and withstand that initial startup time, you're golden. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, persistence is the only thing. It's not your IQ. It's not your knowledge. It's not, there's so many different factors that people can say, man, it's persistence. Good things will happen if you can stick in the industry and obviously treat people the right way and do things the right way. But good things will happen. You'll start seeing different opportunities, align to themselves. And there was a great video that I saw. A gentleman said, he asked the question, how many red cars did you see on your way over here?
You asking me?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Maybe one, Jesse's car.
Okay, hit Jesse's car, right?
Yep.
But now if I told you to go and drive and come back and look for red cars and tell me how many you'd see, how many do you think you'd see?
A lot more.
A lot more.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because you're thinking about it.
You're looking for
conscious about it.
You're looking for it. And that same rule applies to opportunities. If you're looking for opportunities, you'll find them. You don't find them if you're not looking for them. And I don't take credit for that. That was a great analogy from somebody on the interwebs that said that. But it resonated so much with our industry. And you just have to really educate yourself on what to look for and just start looking for it.
Yeah. No, I say the same thing. When I first started, you nailed it right on the head. I came out of college, was engaged to my wife. Mm-hmm. I was in commercial real estate for probably 2 years before I was able to make any kind of money that I could live off of.
Yeah.
And for the first, I think, 7 months of being married, me and my wife lived with my parents. So you just kind of have to have that knowledge. I mean, if you go into it knowing it's just patient persistence. Yeah.
And the other thing is, there's a lot of things to this, but you have to get good at hearing no.
Yeah, 100%.
And unfortunately, our generation, the millennials and the younger one, what's the younger one? What's the one behind us?
Z, right?
I don't know. Z, X, Y, Z, I don't know. Something. But we are increasingly getting our feelings hurt way easier.
Yeah.
And that is not conducive to a world of real estate. Most people that own and operate in real estate are older, of the older generations, right? And they are much different than we are. So you really have to rise above the way we were raised or our culture as our generation, and just get used to getting your feelings hurt. It's not personal. You can't be afraid to ask questions, and you can't be afraid to throw things at the wall and hope they stick. Right? You got to cold call a lot. I mean, that's the bottom line. You've got to reach out to people cold, and 7, 8 times out of 10, you're not going to get a good response.
Yeah.
If a response at all.
Yep.
So getting past that and training yourself to get past that is so key. And this is any sales for the most part, but commercial real estate, especially because there's less people to sell in commercial real estate than most other industries. Right? I know a lot of folks right now, the big one is the solar industry, sales. And, there's millions of homes in the United States that you can sell on that world, but there's far less commercial real estate assets in the world versus homes that you can sell, right? So your pool of targeting is a lot less, but mind you, there is plenty to go around.
Yeah. Do you find it true that in our market, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say this, 20% of the people are doing 80% of the business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If not more. It's probably way more than that.
Yeah.
It's probably closer to 10, if not 5, frankly. You can't compare commercial to residential real estate. Unfortunately, in our state, they get lumped into the same pool.
In licensing.
In statistics, in everything, right? You look at brokers, I'd say 99 and I'm sure a percentage of brokers in this state are residential brokers.
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate for separate licenses, especially in the land side of things. I just see it so often, and this is not I am not trying to be disparaging of residential brokers, but when your main line of business is a certain way, that's what you do, right? And for the most part, most residential brokers, they sell houses. Selling a house is a totally different process and set of skills than that of selling a piece of land. Yeah, there might be some similarities on where you put it online, or the same processes of taking phone calls and answering them, but there is a much different level of experience in being able to value it and being able to educate owners on process and so many different factors that I've been doing it for 15 years. And somebody that might know somebody, like a residential broker that might have a client that they sold a house to, calls up and says, hey, I have this piece of land. What can I do with it? They jump on that listing, which in my opinion, in most cases, is unfair to that owner because they're doing them a disservice. That is not their competency, right? And there's so many things that could go wrong, and I've seen it happen 100 times. And that's why I kind of advocate for a separate license for being able to operate in commercial real estate.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of expertise that you need to have, and I believe that so many owners are getting a disservice just due to that very reason.
Yeah. No, and there's two things. One, it's the same thing with buildings, commercial buildings.
Yeah.
You see a residential agent go list a commercial building, you ask them a question that's like the most basic thing in there. Not all of them. Like you said,
I was going to say, there are so
great,
many very competent residential brokers that do both.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd
the
say
majority,
most of them, you ask them a question like, what's net operating income?
Right.
Like, you should know that if you have this building listed.
Right. I couldn't even tell you that, and I couldn't even tell you how many times exactly net operating, right? What comes out before that? Yeah. And what comes out after that.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people not understand a simple P&L and how to calculate these different things and not even know what a cap rate is.
Yeah.
Right? And these are things that from a commercial standpoint are second nature. But when you don't deal with it every day, you don't know it. And there's no shame in that.
No shame in it.
There's no shame in that. But don't do your client a disservice by doing something that you don't know how to do.
Yeah.
Right?
And I was going to say, I was frustrated when I took my licensing class. I think it was 18 or 19 chapters, and all of them were regarding residential real estate.
There was a small, it was a chapter,
but
one
it was
chapter.
Split in half. Half was property management, and half was commercial real estate.
Yeah.
And so people, when they are asking me about commercial real estate, I'm like, the class is basically worthless, aside from learning the laws.
Yeah.
You just get your experience from playing the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the reasons why, man, I'm a big advocate for separate licenses, and I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that means, or if there's a class, or if you have to have a certain degree, or that's not up to me. But I just think that there needs to be a separation there.
Is that what you're going to implement when you run for mayor?
When I run for mayor, I can't. That's not a mayoral thing. That's a senator. That's a Senate or Congress or
whatever you said you wanted to run for.
Something. Man, I don't know. Politics is likely in my future, but I don't want to do it. One of the things my grandpa told me before he passed, he spent his whole life in politics for the most part, and he advised me not to do it just because of the different aspects that comes with that, just the lobbyists, and there's just a lot of negative that can come with that. So I told myself I wanted to get to a certain place financially in my life before I'd even consider politics. And I think I'm approaching there to where, I can serve the people with a non-biased approach that of what I truly feel is right versus, most of our politicians today, especially on the federal side, they're career politicians. They go in, they go into politics, as an average American, they come out in the 1%, multi-millionaires. That's not right. There's something off there. I don't know what it is in each certain scenario, but that's not right. And I believe that our government was meant, our politicians are meant to serve us. Right? And it's a service. It's not meant to be a career. So I do believe that Someday maybe I'll get into it, and when I do, it's going to be for those reasons and the right reasons. And I do believe that I want to serve the community, and I do not like the direction we are going in so many different facets. And I keep a running agenda of things that I would change on different levels, in the current times or whatever it is. And there's a lot of things that I would change.
Yeah. No, definitely. I've asked most of the questions I was going to ask. Maybe we could do some rapid fire ones. There's some things I think people would like to hear. Like, what's probably your top favorite deal you've done to date?
I mean, man, they're all great deals. I'm proud of everything we've done. I would say I'd say a conglomerate of a few deals, and it would be everything we've done on Hillsborough Street here in Raleigh. We own a property, if not multiple, on most blocks on Hillsborough Street, and the majority of those are covered land plays to be developed in the future, and those are just trophy locations, and eventually will turn into trophy assets that we redevelop into something, whether it's student housing or hotels or whatever the case is. But we've amassed a really nice conglomerate of properties on Hillsborough Street that, in my opinion, that's one of the best stretches of commercial real estate in Raleigh, for one. But two, when it comes to the student housing world, it's one of the best in the country, because you're right across from NC State, which is 34 plus or minus 1,000 students, and it's just a great market for that. And over the past 10 years, student housing's been on fire. So it's among some of the best real estate in the country, in my opinion. And we've really worked hard at amassing a really nice portfolio along there. So I'd say that's probably what I'm most proud of.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think? Two questions. One, what do you think somebody looking to get into commercial real estate could make a year after, kind of that introductory 1 to 2 year period of making almost nothing?
It depends on what asset class you want to focus on or what you're doing. Obviously, there's a lot of depends there. Adult diapers depends. Man, I don't know. It can be anywhere from a couple $100,000 a year to well over $1 million a year. You can pull in. I know brokers that are making over multiple million a year, and I know brokers that are making a few $100,000 a year, and I know brokers that are starting out that in their first couple years they made $100,000 a year. So I've seen the gamut, but you really need to get into the specifics of the asset class you want to focus on to really understand deal velocity, for one. How quickly can you make money is another question. Each asset class has a different cycle. If you're doing leasing, you can make money in several. It could be weeks. You could do a lease, but land, it's going to take you a couple years. But land, that one check can be $100,000. It can be $300,000 for one deal.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be able to pick that world, but then also, sprinkle in, some leasing if you're doing land, or some investment sales if you're doing land, right? So you have the big hitters over here, but then, you're still keeping the pipeline going over here, right?
Yeah, I've kind of seen a lot of people ask me what's the difference between like getting into residential real estate versus commercial real estate.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things. Like, you're selling houses.
Yeah.
You're selling, let's say you close or you go under contract, you got 30 days and you're getting a check.
Yeah.
Versus commercial real estate, a quick timeline on a commercial real estate deal would be 60 days.
I'd say 90, but yeah.
But right now, 90 days is more
at
common.
least.
So it's like at a minimum.
Right. And those are part of the challenge of educating people and sellers, frankly, and buyers on the differences, right? And I'd also say this, the residential world is there's a lot more emotion in residential real estate than there is commercial, if not mostly emotion when you're doing a home transaction, right? In commercial, it is so different.
Yeah, we could do an entire podcast about the difference between residential and commercial real estate.
We could.
We probably should.
And we should.
Yeah.
They're and I'm not a residential expert by any means. I don't think I've ever sold a house. People have asked me to sell their house, my friends, and I'm like, that's not what I do.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay out of that.
Yeah.
Because it is a process that I could not do. I have all the respect in the world for residential brokers, and my house here, I'm not selling it. I'm going to let a residential broker sell it, because that's not what I do, and it's a totally different animal.
Yeah. The other question I had is if somebody's looking to get into like the development side where they're doing land entitlement, land flipping.
Yep.
What do you think? What do you think someone could expect to make after a couple of years being in it?
So risky.
So risky.
It's so risky. And there's a whole nother, episode we could do on different aspects of entitlement and the different forms of it and how far you take it. But so many developers go belly up, go under. And the typical time that happens is whenever they take out a loan on a piece of land. Mm-hmm. The second you pull the trigger on a loan or borrowed monies on an asset that is not producing cash, a piece of land, you have to do a lot of work to it for it to produce cash. So, a lot can change in that timeline.
Oh yeah, like interest rates can triple.
Interest rates, the entitlement time frames. Homes could go down 20%. Construction costs for the dirt work can go up, which is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
So in 2008, what happened was a lot of developers took out big loans on pieces of land that they were developing, and things changed dramatically. And so now you're sitting with, sometimes tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt payments every month on a piece of land. That's what causes you to have issues, right? So, I've done that aspect of development. I don't like the risk. I think there's other avenues to take a lot less risk in the development world, which I like, and I'm proud to say I've gotten very good at it. Mm-hmm. And
so, what do you
it's
think?
more in the entitlement world.
How much?
I mean, if you're good at it and if you spread your risk out, you can make millions a year. Make millions of dollars a year. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And the other question is, what do you think like the average pop is per deal? I mean,
there's no average, man. They're all different.
They're all different.
There's no average. I mean, you can take the singles all day long, where you make 50 to 100 grand, 200 grand, and there's a lot less required about those. And then you can have your grand slams going on the side that can
million.
Get a yeah. I know developers that have made several million on entitlement deals.
Yeah.
And they did very little work to it. They contracted the property at the right time, the right place, with the right zoning, the right council. There's a lot of rights that went right, right? But that can result in millions of dollars of upside.
Yeah,
millions. We've oftentimes heard really good success stories, and kudos to those groups that have done that. I have all the respect in the world for them, and we've just shaken our heads like, wow, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
But again, you got to be looking for those opportunities. And there's metrics that you can kind of back into and boil down. This is where the whole tech side with me and the predictive analytics comes in, where I geek out on that kind of thing and really try to implement smart tech strategies into commercial real estate. But there are ways to predict those now going forth with all the data that we have access to. There's ways to predict those big hits, right? And when a property is going to be just right. And there's value there, and it's fun, man. I enjoy that side of things a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't think I have any other questions for you. That was pretty much all I had.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you having this discussion. It was a good one, I think.
No, this is great.
I think there's lots of little nuggets people can pull out and use.
I hope
they're one or two into real estate or.
Yeah, my goal is to add value to the world in however I know best. And that's through real estate. Yeah. So I hope that somebody can take this, information and do something with it. If it inspires somebody, awesome. If it does, let us know. That'd be great. We're always looking for people at CityPlat that are passionate about real estate, that want it. So, reach out to us and we'll see how we can get you plugged in.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was like a little bit more of insight into CityPlat as a company, who runs CityPlat as a company, and get some background. Because, I'm in and I'm there every day seeing it, so I appreciate it. But kind of getting a better idea of how everything went down. It's cool to see. And also, if you find deals and want to bring deals to CityPlat,
we're always looking for deals.
Send them to me. And I'll send them to them so I can get the commission.
Get it to Graham. He'll vet it.
Yeah.
He'll make sure it's right for us, and we'll go through the right channels to get it done. And we're always looking for investors. Yeah. The people that want to place capital with us. We've always got deals that we're looking to fund. We don't need them, but we're always looking for new ones. We can grow with our investors, and we're always looking for tenacious, smart people that want it. That want to be in the brokerage world or want to own real estate. And, we have strict criteria of who we work with, but that's for a very good reason. And so, anybody that's interested in that, please reach out.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks, Pat. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, man. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Greg. Thank you for having me.
having
Thank you for coming to my house.
Yeah.
And doing it at my house.
Get out.